Throughout my first 10 years as a rabbi, synagogue doors were unlocked and unguarded whenever we worshiped or held religious school. We perhaps hired officers specifically for the parking lot on the high holy days. All that changed with 9/11. Sadly, we live in a world that feels considerably more dangerous than it did 3 decades ago. Particularly, but not only for Jews and synagogues. The ADL's most recent complete data is for 2020, when it reported that anti-Semitic incidents remained at a historically high level across the U.S., with a total of 2,024 incidents of assault, harassment, and vandalism reported to ADL, which has recorded a 60% increase of anti-Semitic incidents over the last 5 years. Moreover, this January, ADL emphasized Jews are consistently the most targeted religious community in the U.S. According to the FBI's annual data on hate crimes, defined as criminal offenses which are motivated by bias, crimes targeting the Jewish community consistently constitute over half of all religion-based hate crimes. To be more specific, in 2020 there were 327 reported anti-Semitic incidents at Jewish institutions such as synagogues, Jewish community centers, and Jewish schools, an increase of 40% from 234 in 2019. As we await ADL's 2021 report, 2022 is off to a frightening start. On January 15th, Rabbi Charlie Citron Walker and 3 of his congregants were taken hostage. Thankfully, one was released and the others escaped unharmed some 10 or 11 hours later. Physically unharmed, that is. Trauma like that lasts a lifetime, not only for the hostages, but also for their families. At a much different level, I was traumatized on January 15th, and I was far from alone. My son Daniel, who reveres Rabbi Charlie as he's called from time together at Green Family Camp, and I were filled with dread and worry throughout that afternoon and evening, helpless to do anything but pray that my friend would survive. As soon as Rabbi Citron Walker and his fellow hostages heroically saved themselves, we cried we were so relieved. But then our thoughts quickly turned to the toll that incident would take on rabbis and synagogues across the nation. First, though, the world was treated to an Orwellian denial that anti-Semitism was at work in Colleyville that day. FBI Special Agent in Charge Michael DeSarno declared that the hostage taker was singularly focused on one issue, and it was not specifically related to the Jewish community. We were stunned. The government hadn't taken over an Arby's to try to secure the release of a terrorist known as Lady Al-Qaeda. He had attacked a synagogue. Over the next day or two, we learned that the attacker had demanded that Rabbi Citron Walker contact a colleague, Rabbi Angela Buchdahl of Central Synagogue in New York, imagining that she would have the power to secure the imprisoned terrorist's release. After all, he thought, Jews control America. The day after Agent DeSarno's unbelievable declaration, the FBI released a statement describing the Colleyville hostage crisis as a terrorism-related matter in which the Jewish community was targeted. Still, the damage was done. And days later, when I met with Arkansas's new supervisory agent in charge, he still insisted that DeSarno's claim was accurate. The ADL reminds us that Jews are regularly targeted because of their actual or perceived support for Israel and Zionism. That is often referred to as anti-Semitism from the left, which it is. However, even those attacks share a feature that is central to anti-Semitic attacks from the extreme right, such as the 2018 Pittsburgh Tree of Life synagogue massacre. They all espouse the basic anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that Jews exert outsized power in the world. We must also acknowledge that anti-Semitism is part and parcel of a crisis of white supremacy facing our nation. We can all recall the fine people who gathered in Charlottesville in 2017 and marched with tiki torches chanting, "Jews will not replace us." They menaced the local synagogue. But their primary targets were people of color. We, therefore, are united with communities that are often more vulnerable than we in the struggle against hate. Mindful of threats to the safety of all American Jews, our temple leadership has taken measures to secure members and guests whenever we gather here. Measures that began in 2001 were ramped up after the Pittsburgh Massacre, and now, after Colleyville, we are taking a fresh look. We know, and experts continue to remind us, that having an armed and uniformed police presence is our most important action. Now, I'm beginning each service by reminding the congregation of our emergency exits. Our security committee is meeting regularly, and new measures will be forthcoming. Every move comes with an awareness of potential discomfort to members and guests who are people of color, and with an unswerving commitment to hospitality. Nobody wants to spend our resources, whether time or money, on security, but we all agree, in the words of Rabbi Scott Weiner, unease and sanctuary do not go together. This week we read from the Torah the fifth and final portion about the consecration of the tabernacle and the tent of meeting, the portable sanctuary of the children of Israel in the wilderness. That sanctuary was made secure by the devotion of every Israelite who brought gifts, whether of talent or treasure or both, to its construction. And that sanctuary was secured by the presence of God, whose cloud fills the tabernacle as soon as it is dedicated. As we complete a book of the Torah, as we conclude our study of Exodus for the year this Shabbat, we affirm chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Strong, strong, let us strengthen one another. Strength is not attained merely by amassing arms or building muscles. Instead, the Soviet Union fell when it spent too much on weapons, and Russia's future is imperiled today by what its president imagines to be projection of strength. For our sanctuary to remain secure, we must consistently review and enhance our security measures, and we must do more. We must welcome the contributions of all who enter. We must demonstrate the courage of our faith by continuing to worship in these sacred precincts, even when times are tough. And let us draw strength, too, from God, whose presence fills our sanctuary, just as it did the tent of meeting in the wilderness.